In this video, we're going to tie a permit fly called the Avalon Permit Fly. First thing we're going to do is just start off with some UTC 140 tan thread. You can also use Veevus 6/0 thread. We're going to start off with a 811S saltwater Tiemco hook and some large brass eyes, either in black nickel or nickel. And we're just going to do some figure 8 wraps around those eyes to keep them secure. Then we're going to take our thread all the way back here to the bend. At this point you can invert the hook if it makes it a little easier for you. And we're going to take a little bit of fox fur, some Arctic fox. I'm going to use some hot orange. This is kind of going to be the egg sac of the fly. This fly imitates like a shrimp or a crab. We're just going to cut off a little chunk, just a little tuft. We're going to take it and put it right underneath the bend of the hook here. And we want it to just kind of cover up the whole bend of the hook there. You don't want to go past your hook, but you kind of want to go right up to it. And you can trim out the excess. Then you can re-invert your hook. Now the next step is some black crystal flash. I want to tie this in fairly long to begin with, at least 3 times the length of the shank of the hook. I'm just going to tie this along each side of the hook. There we are. Then the next thing we're going to tie in is going to be some barred rubber legs, either in orange or in tan. And we're going to want these to be at least twice the length of the shank of the hook. So I tie them in fairly long to begin with. Right on each side. You can kind of stretch them as you tie them in. Here we are. Now I want to trim these so that they're about twice the length of the shank of the hook. You want them to be even as well. And then you want your black crystal flash to be about 1/2 inch longer than that. There we are. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take some 20-pound mono. I like to use hard mono for this. So I'm using some Rio hard mono. And you can take your scissors or a pair of pliers and kind of rough up the tip of that mono. You can see how I kind of roughed it all up. That'll give the thread something to bite into, and will keep this piece of mono from pulling out. So I just make it nice and secure here, laying down some nice tight wraps all the way back to the bend here. Now we're going to take a piece of pearl flat diamond braid, and I'm going to pull off a little chunk here, about 4 inches long or so. And we're going to cut it in half. So I have a couple inch, 2 pieces that are about 2 inches long. We're just going to tie these in along the side of our fly. just as we did the legs and the crystal flash, and I do it on each side. There we are. And you can kind of pull it all back and out of the way. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of extra select marabou in tan color. I'm going to pull off a piece that has some nice fine tips to it. I'm going to strip off some of the base of the fluff. Just exposing the nice tip of the marabou. Then I'm going to draw it all together. I'm going to tie it in by the tip, wrap back down to the back of the fly here, and back forward again. Now I'm just going to take that marabou and twist it and wrap it around our body here. Then you can capture it. Trim out the extra. And if there's a few long fibers, you can pluck them out, cut them out. You can leave them as well. Leaving them makes it look like a buggy little shrimp thing. So there's nothing wrong with leaving a few longer fibers. Then we're going to take a zonkered rabbit strip in a tan or light brown color. I like this light brown color here. It looks really shrimpy. And we're going to trim a piece that's about the length of our hook. You don't want it to be too long. So I trim out a piece. And then we're going to tie it right behind the eye, our dumbbell eye here. We're just going to sneak our thread under there. We'll tie it in right on the side. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side here. Try to make your strips about the same length. And then sneak the other strip there on the other side. Then we can jump our thread forward to in front of those eyes. And then we're going to take our pearl flat diamond braid and we're going to pull it right over the top. And you can trim that out of there. Now we're going to take some beads, about 1/8 inch sized beads. You can either use black or nickel. And we're going to slide all these beads onto our hard mono here. This is going to act as a keel. It's going to keep this fly sinking straight down with the hook up. It's also going to add some weight, so it's going to sink down really quickly and get in front of those permit really fast. We're going to make this loop here on the top. I'm going to pull it forward, and we want our loop to stick up about 2-3 beads high. So I don't want to pull this loop tight. I want to leave just a little bit of a loop to allow those beads a little bit of free movement. They'll kind of click and rattle too as you strip your fly. Then we're just going to take our thread here and capture that loop. I want to make sure it's right on top and centered on our hook. And you really want to make sure you bite down with some nice tight thread wraps. Do a couple of whip finishes for good measure. And I'll even add some brush on Zap-A-Gap to really keep that head from coming apart. I'll zoom out here a little bit. And that is a finished Avalon Permit Fly. When it sinks, you have those legs that splay out, look kind of like a crab or a mantis shrimp. Those long antennae, those little rubber legs, and that little hot spot of orange there really entice those permit to eat. Also a great bonefish fly, believe it or not. You can tie it a little smaller and a little lighter for your bonefish. I usually kind of like to straighten out my claws here, or whatever you want to call them. Little rabbit strips. And that is a finished Avalon Permit Fly.